This is Mitch, and welcome to the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. I'm here with Daniel Ramsey. He is the founder of MyOutDesk, and he is an expert in how to grow your business using professional virtual assistants. And this is something that anybody and everybody can use. It's really not relegated at all to just the real estate industry. It could be any industry, especially for those of you who are right now a one-man show. Once upon a time, we were probably all a one-man show if we're entrepreneurs, and everybody knows how exciting that is and how quickly that turns to, I've got too many damn hats on. I can't do anything very good at all. I need some help, so virtual assistants are a great choice. I have had up to 6 virtual assistants at one time. I have 3 right now and looking for another one. I do need to pay homage to my sponsor. Please go to taxfreefuture.com because you do not have any idea what your financial advisors are not telling you. And believe me, they're not telling you a lot, and they're not telling you for a reason, mostly because they don't get paid very well if they tell you. So we're going to tell you, and then you can figure out how to get your money into a tax-deferred or tax-free vehicle so you can grow your finances or your retirement and take advantage of this gigantic tool in your tool belt. Taxfreefuture.com. All right, got that out of the way. Hey, Daniel, how you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks for having me today.
No, sure. I love this topic. I haven't talked about it a whole lot. I'm glad that you're here because it's a super huge choice that a lot of people should be making earlier, way before they do, or some of them don't make the choice at all. Tell us where you're from and how you got into the virtual assistant overseas outsourcing business, and then we'll move forward.
Yeah, it's a simple story, Mitch. We're Sacramento, California. That's where our headquarters are. So, like the leadership team, our sales folks, all the marketing guys are here in California. But, we have 1,200 virtual assistants over in the Philippines. And what's cool about that, we go, I'm a real estate broker, investor, and literally, I haven't even told you the story yet, but it's a great one. I'm on my honeymoon with my wife, and I'm at the bar, and it's like 1 o'clock at night, and my wife's passed out sleeping in the bungalow. We're in Guatemala in a rainforest, and we just spent the day trekking through the Mayan ruins, so we're exhausted. We newlyweds. And I'm at the bar at 1 a.m, working because I'm closing a deal. Like I'm like in the midst of negotiating a big transaction. And, the bartender, he's a Spanish guy, and he kind of got to know us because we've been there a couple of days, and he starts making fun of me, and at that moment I knew like something had to change in my business world in order for me to have a family and grow this thing, because at that point it was just me.
So he was making fun of you because you were on vacation on your honeymoon and you were still sneaking out working.
Yeah. And if you're a real estate guy, whether you're an investor or a real estate agent or broker or whatever, that is the reality that we all live in. Like we are working and closing deals. I was just in Arizona last week, and I was with a good friend of mine who has a couple of our virtual assistants, and we're driving around, and he's like, Ramsey, I got to go swing by a new home development. I'm like, really? Why? He goes, I got to negotiate a pool. And so like, we're just pulled in a million directions as real estate professionals. And if that is you, then this podcast is absolutely something you need to listen to. And if I'm you, I'm taking notes, man.
Yeah. Well, so, I tried to automate my business, which was a form of house flipping. I buy houses with other people's money. I have about $15 million worth of private money, which is what happens over 22 years. If you pay people back like you're supposed to, you get a lot of money. And so I haven't seen the last, I went to automate, and I tried 5 times myself and failed. So I went to a mastermind, paid $30,000 to learn how to automate my specific kind of business. So I got in a room with a bunch of people that had already automated my kind of business. And I went there with an open mind, and I let them unwind me. And then I did what they said, and I let them rewind me a different way. And I'm proud to say now, in the last 5 5 or 6, 7 years, I haven't seen the last 300 houses I bought. I haven't seen the last 300 people that bought my house. And I've been pretty much freed up to retire for a couple of years and then figure out, not even a couple of years. I was going on the second year when I figured out like, this isn't working. I'm bored out of my head. So I started podcasting and coaching people. But a lot of going through that process and this podcast, I have a lot of help from overseas. Why did you pick, of all the different people across the globe, you picked the Philippines to do this in? Why?
Well, there's a lot of good reason in real estate, whether you're an investor or just an agent, you're constantly looking for deals, and that requires prospecting. So you're on the phone, calling people, getting them to register, sending them mailers, whatever it is. So for us, one of the most important activities you can do for us as a company is helping our clients grow their revenue. So we have around 600 folks that are just simply on the phones all day long, looking for deals, pounding the phone, and basically prospecting for our clients. And so one thing about the Philippines is that they have an accent neutral kind of country. So if you go India or Southeast Asia, there's some areas that the accent is really thick. In the Philippines, it just isn't the case. You get folks on the phone and people just don't know where they're calling from. And we tell our clients, get a local number so it looks like it's somebody calling right from your office. Maybe you can actually just add another line on to your office so it actually says your office when they're calling. But for us, it was number one, the accent is very neutral, so growing people's revenue is easy. Number two, they have a really close 93% of the population, they're Catholic. And so that really is a good match for us in terms of like ethics and how they work and all of those kind of things. So, culturally, the U.S. and the Philippines is very tied. We had an army base over there. We freed them from Spain and then later from Japan. So they are positive about Americans. And they work our schedule. So it's normal for them to work nights so they can support us during the day.
That's one of the things I noticed when I was hiring my first virtual assistant. I said, what time is it over there? It's almost exactly opposite, So
Yep.
When it's noon here, it's midnight there, basically, or pretty close. And I said, well, how do we work out this time difference? And they just said to me, you tell me when you want me to work. That's when I'm working. I said, yeah, but he said, doesn't matter. You tell me when you want to work. We work at your schedule. I thought, wow, these guys are aggressive. They want to work, and I guess they've grown up with the internet, and this technology is bringing a middle class to this country, right?
That's right. Well,
as a matter of fact, some of the people I pay, I understand now because I paid them consistently. They feel comfortable. They have good jobs. I pay them well. I start out, kind of average or whatever, because of the exchange rate, it's really affordable. But when you find someone who really does their job well, we can bonus these people, and bonuses go a really, really, really long way with them because of the exchange rate. I'm under the impression that like $5 an hour in the Philippines is basically like $50,000 an hour. I mean, $50,000 a year salary in the United States, more or less. Am I close there?
Yeah. I mean, here's our world, right? So if you're listening right now, we pay them about $17.47 a month for an entire month. So what our clients tell us, that's about 60% savings compared to hiring somebody local in your office. So Mitch, last year we did a survey of our clients and asked them, what are we actually saving you? And for 2018, we reported $55 million in actual savings compared to what you would pay in the US for the exact same caliber of talent.
Yeah. And when you do a lot of training, you do a lot of sifting. How do you qualify? Do you do background checks and stuff on your folks? What's the qualifications to work through as a Philippine through MyOutDesk? What are the qualifications?
Well, that's a good question. And, I think we got to start at the beginning. And Mitch, if you're okay, I'm going to kind of, step back and then answer that question. Here's the challenge that we find in our industry is there's 28 million businesses out there, 28 million businesses. Now, 96% of them, so freaking most of them, like most of them by a long shot, have revenue below $1 million. So most businesses out there are just expensive jobs or high paying jobs, and people think they own businesses, right? And of that 96, here's another number that just kind of blows your mind. 60% of them tell the government that they actually made no money or lost money. So here you go. I mean, this is the challenge that we have as an entrepreneur. Most people never get over the goal line of having a 7-figure business. And so we started looking at our clients who had made that versus the ones who hadn't. What are the differences between the teams that really kind of have expanded and grown their revenue? And it's all about leverage and systems and processes. And so one of the things that we like to help people do is really do an analysis about who's on their team now and who do they need in order to double their business.
Yeah. So at $1,750 a month, what does that come out to an hour that I'm going to be paying? What is that? Do the math.
It's a little over $10. It's $10 an hour.
So here's the point I want to make to the listeners. You know, you can pay someone in the United States $10 an hour. You're not going to get a very high caliber person. I mean, I know. I wish it wasn't true, but I've tried it because I was a tightwad and I thought, you know, I was being frugal. Actually, that $10 an hour hiring an American cost my living freaking ass because they didn't do anything and they screwed everything up and they just don't give a crap. And so I switched and I started, you know, doing what Daniel Ramsey's suggesting, and I started paying, you know, that amount of money to some folks overseas, and I found out there's this whole different caliber of person that's working for them because of the exchange rate. I mean, at $10 an hour here now, obviously the overseas person's not getting to keep 100% of the $10 an hour because, of course, Daniel Ramsey makes a business out of getting some kind of little markup on the person that he's trained, checked the background on, you know, felt good enough to recommend. And he can't just go out and grab anybody and say, this is the guy I recommend, or he'd look like an idiot. He's got to put him through something. I'm not exactly sure what all it is, but I know that it's got to be extensive because it's his reputation on the line. And he's been in business way too long to be haphazard. So, but my point is, I was getting like, I was hiring ex-hospital administrators, you know, assistants or managers of companies, or I was getting a whole different caliber person for this $10 an hour. And it actually was their job was a very, very big deal to them. A person with a $10 an hour job in the United States, hey, they were looking for a job when they found you, and they can find another $10 an hour job tomorrow in 5 minutes. And there's no loyalty, and they're not going to stay. And and Americans don't want to earn their way to anything, hardly from the ground up. They expect a lot of immediate gratification. I found that overseas, they're willing to put their time in, prove themselves. Their job is very important to them. And the other thing I noticed was they take great pride in working for a good company where, like, you know, in some cultures, it's not that way. But I think, like, maybe we're taught to go to college. I think they're taught in their culture to find a good company and stay with them and grow with them. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cultural thing. It's interesting. In the U.S., we want to be the individual track star. You know, we want to be the one that finishes the race, and it's because of me that we won. You know, in the Philippines, and that's our number one cultural identity as Americans, right? We were the innovators. Yeah. In the Philippines, the cultural identifier, the number one thing that makes them kind of tick is being a part of. In fact, they have a word in their culture about that. So they're way more concerned with the health of the entire system and the team than Americans are. So that's what makes them such a great fit as an employee for a small business, as well as, you know, they don't have the kind of opportunity that we have here in the US. So for them, working for a US based company is just massive opportunity, and they respect and, appreciate that kind of opportunities.
I have found them to be, the ones that I've worked with, to be very integral and care deeply about the good of the company.
Yeah.
which was refreshing to me. Also, there's some challenges from going overseas, IP addresses and stuff. I'm sure my Outdesk knows how to deal with those challenges very well. What are some of the challenges? I know there's some challenges with postings and stuff from IP addresses and stuff across the ocean, but there's ways to deal with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things, systems. Back when I was selling and active as a real estate agent, we put a camera in front of the MLS login, and it was a Skype camera, so my virtual assistants could actually log into MLS and upload my listings and do all the paperwork. So and then we had a computer that was standard, and they could just IP into that computer, so they could post on Craigslist, and so they could see US based kind of websites and because most companies, depending on where you're at, if it's a national brand or a world brand, they will IP locate your PC. So if you're looking at, Coke in Asia, you're going to see the Asian brand of Coke, not the US brand. So you just have to, know ways of blocking IP addresses and having a VPN if you need to log in, and just these little tiny tricks if that's part of the job description.
So are you training these specifically for certain tasks, or do you just do the background checks and turn them over to someone like me who I have to train them myself, or is this a choice?
Yeah, it's a choice. I mean, I keep wanting to reel you back because your audience needs to know how to start in the process and like how to choose and what are the different things you can do. But
let's do that. Let's do that then. Start from the beginning. Like I'm a new entrepreneur. I have a business. It's really a job, and I got too much to do, and I'm wearing too many hats. What do I do first? Take me from there.
Okay, perfect. So Mitch, what I would do is I'd get a sticky challenge. We call it stickies, right? You get a pack of stickies, and then you just follow yourself around for a couple weeks. I had this gal out of South America. She was an investment person, and she was like us. She's making millions of dollars a year, and what she was selling was investment, like stock investments, right? And she and I are talking, and she's just miserably unhappy. She doesn't like the company that she's selling for. She doesn't like her team. And she comes to me and she says, I need something else. I need to do something different. And I ask her to do the sticky challenge. And that is just following yourself around all day long and figuring out what you're doing on a daily basis. So she just did that for 2 weeks. She found out she spent 37% of her time on social media. And she was working 70, 80 hours a week. And she's one of these millennials and an awesome business person. But if you're listening right now and you're thinking, well, what should I outsource? What can I outsource? The first step is just doing a time study and knowing what you're doing throughout your day. And that is easiest done with just a sticky note and just following yourself around. Once you get that information, the next step is just, okay, you have to ask yourself, Mitch, what's the one thing you need to do in order to double your business? And sometimes the answer comes 1, 2, or 3. Like there might be a bunch of stuff. And then you look at your sticky challenge and you try to decide like, okay, what are the things that I need to do? And what are the things that I can delegate down to somebody else?
Yeah, well, one of the popular phrases is don't work below your pay grade. So you figure out what it is that you do that really makes the money. What's the most important thing? For me, it's always been raising private money or finding the deal. Everything else came after that. It didn't matter. And that's what I did best. So when I was trying to learn to automate my business, my goal was to eliminate anything that didn't have to do with speaking to a potential private lender or speaking to a motivated seller. If it didn't have to do with those two things, I was trying to completely take myself out of the picture of that process.
Right. And then the next challenge is when you make that decision, and Mitch, I went through this. I screwed this stuff up when I was new at it, right? Leverage is hard because finding deals and being a real estate professional, once you get good at that, it's something you can do. And I got really good at it just like you did. And it was something to do. But then I decided to hire somebody, and it was like I was thrown back in kindergarten or first grade. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what the steps were. So now we're getting back to like the biggest challenge with deciding what's next. So we have this other thing that is great for your audience. If it's not finding deals or getting capital, right? so that then you put it into a system or a process. And we talked about a little bit about that earlier, but you know, my favorite thing to do is these webinars right now, we're recording, you and I can see each other. We can talk about the why and the what. So if you're listening and you're like, okay, now I have my list, I did my sticky challenge, I know what the most important work is. Now I'm going to delegate and get all of these things off my plate so I can focus, you know, I can double the amount of time I'm finding money and finding deals. You know, you basically start doing a list, and then you start making checklists, or you start making videos, or you start creating some training material for this person so they do it just like you do it.
Now, one of the biggest challenges for me was I had to give myself permission. Luckily, as circumstances would have it, I was about ready to quit because I was so exhausted of 15 years of doing everything. And then I thought, well, if I quit, I'm going to lose $1 million plus income down to zero if I walk away from it. So I decided one more time to try to automate it. If I could just save 500,000 of the $1 million plus income, at least I wasn't walking away from the whole thing and getting zero. And I thought I would have to pay these people pretty good. So it's going to take over half of my income just to pay the right people. How naive was I? Come to find out that once I had the right people in the right chairs that were experts at the one thing they had to do, instead of me being half-assed at the 10 things I had to do or 100 things I had to do, I made more money. I did less and made more because everybody in their chair was so much better at the one thing than I was. Now, I would have beat all of them in most things if that's all I had to do was their job, but I didn't. And so where I was really surprised was that I made more when I quit doing almost everything. The other thing, though, that I would want to say to the listeners out there is I had to give myself permission. I was used to buying 100 houses a year. The year that I decided to automate and fix my business, which took me a year, and for better or for worse, maybe someone will fix it better, faster than me or not, but it took me a year. I had to concentrate on every seat. I had to write the deal. I had to figure out what I wanted them to do. I had to figure out how to keep them out of these people's business and so I didn't buy 100 houses that year. And that was the problem the other 5 times. I had not given myself permission to sit down and not buy 100 houses because when you're trying to fix your business, you can't buy 100 houses when you're one guy trying to fix your business. And so I only bought 30 houses that year. It was good enough to keep me afloat and make me not cry altogether. But that year that I finally fixed the business, I gave myself permission not to buy any houses.
Right.
If that makes any sense. And that's a huge expense that I don't even want to calculate what it was worth. But was it really expensive or was it not? Because now I am free and I have over $1 million income. So I think it was a year in money well spent. Scary at the time, but looking back, I'd do it again over and over again. Tell me about some of your success stories where guys have done that.
Well, you know, your story is absolutely the story. And we call it 7-figure business roadmap, right? So the thing that stops an entrepreneur from making that leap to building a team and automating some of their business and then delegating some of their business is they've never done it before. It's not an intuitive skill because normally we're people, you know, we like talking, we like sales, but sitting down and hammering out a process, that's not normal. So we've coined the play, pause, do, where you record your screen and you just do the work. You sit in that chair and you do the work and record your screen and then talk about the why and the what and the, you know, where and all the stuff. And then you can create 3 to 5 videos that are basically you can save forever. And now you've just created a process that's not super painful, but 100% of the time it's about creating the systems and processes and like you had to take the gas, you had to take your foot off the brake or the gas.
Off the gas, yeah.
Yeah, you have to do that in order to actually do this. We call that the optimize stage. It's where you're optimizing your business so that you can actually put systems in place and then automate it and then eventually delegate the rest of it down so that you're focused on the stuff that only you can do.
Okay, so we got about 8 more minutes left because you have a hard stop here. So I just want to let you know, but I want to tell you Because I could talk to you forever, and we could probably talk for a long time, and maybe we should do a different segment after this. But I want you guys to go to reinvestorsummit.com, VA Outdesk, okay? Make it My Outdesk, My Outdesk, reinvestorsummit.com/My Outdesk. And I want you to get a copy of this book, Scale with Virtual Professionals, or How to Scale with Virtual Professionals. Okay, this thing has over like all the positions you could ever imagine in the real estate world. They've already got them mapped out and who they are and what the positions are. You need someone for that particular position. They already understand it. You can look at the different maps. They can teach you about a 90-day launch program. I don't know. They have a lot of offers. We're going to run short on time, but go to. We're going to put a lot of this over in the show notes over here. Whatever we missed, there'll be a lot of links. Just read what those links are about. Maybe they even get a free consultation with one of his representatives. I'm sure that's on the books. So go to reinvestorsummit.com/MyOutDesk and get to know Daniel Ramsey and his company better, because it can make all the difference. Any words you want to say before maybe we wrap it up, because we're getting close here?
Yeah, you know what? Now we're ready to answer your first two questions, I think. So like now we optimized our business. We've sat in the seats, like you said, and we've defined the job description for the folks that I'm going to hire, right? And I know what I need, because the reality is, as an entrepreneur, like we're running around. Mitch, if you remember back before you hired people and you're doing 100 deals, you're running around like a man with your hair on fire.
I was totally reactionary. I'd go to do something and the phone would ring and I'd be off on something else.
Right.
It was horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah. And so if you find yourself in that space, you've got to go to the show notes and get a copy of the book and actually have a consultation. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at your org chart, and we're going to look at basically what systems and processes you have together right now. Like, system is all the IT stuff. Like, are you sending mailers? What's your phone system? What's your CRM? How are you generating new leads for your houses or for, private money? We're going to look at all those things, and then we're going to distill it into what are the gaps that exist in your business right now? And then what's your schedule like? Like, a lot of our clients come to us and say, Daniel, I need to buy some of my time back. And when somebody gets to that realization that time is more precious than money, everything shifts. You become a CEO of your business. You actually now are building a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah, and you'll actually be where you want to be when there's a CEO under you. That means you own the damn business. It doesn't own you and you're not working in it. And I've even got to get to the point where I'm not the CEO of my business. I have a CEO that sends me the spreadsheets, and I just check in on this crap every Friday and look at the numbers and make sure the pipeline's full and make sure the bank accounts are heavy and that, it looks like we're going to make it to the end of next week. And I just watch week to week to make sure that we're not drifting off somewhere or falling off somewhere. So
well, you're describing, okay, so we call it the 7-figure business roadmap, and I want to break it down for your audience real quick. If you're in the I do it space, you're an entrepreneur, you're a solo guy, what we're talking about is hiring a team, building systems and processes. So we call it the we do it space. Okay. So that's when you're growing, you're trying to get to $1 million in revenue, you're putting your systems and processes, and you're hiring, you're learning how to be a CEO at that point, right? In the we do it space. Now, what you just talked about is the they do it space. And in the they do it, you're squeezing profits out of your already existing system. And all of that is about, how can I leverage how many houses I'm doing right now? How can I leverage my investor relationships? How can I leverage my private money relationships so I can squeeze more? How can I do stuff like maybe making a podcast, right, Mitch? Because in that stage, and they do it, it's all about the people on your team and the vision. Like, you're looking for the future of what's happening in the real estate world or in your particular industry world, and looking for ways to leverage and squeeze it. So that's the they do it. And when you do a consultation with us, we'll very squarely sit down and understand where you're at, what gaps exist. And we won't get stuck in the how pie. We're going to get in the who pie. Mitch, the difference between billionaires and everyone else is they only think about, who do I need to double my business or take this or build this thing or whatever. And people who are, really small business owners, solopreneurs, they're thinking of how can I do it? The right question is, who do I need on my team so I can win?
Yeah. We all got just 24 hours in a day. And no matter how good a multitasker you are, and there's arguments for against even the wanting to be a multitasker, it's not going to happen unless you build a team. And it's challenging. I was good at some other stuff. Apparently hiring people was not my forte, because I hired people that sucked. I mean, they were horrible. I hired them, I guess, for all the wrong reasons. I finally got to where I started testing people. And I wanted all this great stuff: responsibility, money driven, money motivated, integrity, honesty, the whole thing. I wanted all that. But I also wanted to test them to make sure they didn't have an entrepreneurial bone in their body, and that they weren't very good personal money managers, so that no matter how much they made, they didn't make enough to go in business against me. I started using that, started helping me find the right people. And the people that these tests told me to hire, I was shaking my head going, no way. They're still with me like 5 years later. And they're top at their segment of what they're doing. And I'm completely blown away about who I was picking and what a real hiring psyche knows what to pick. And it wasn't anything what I thought. So.
Yep. And well, now we're getting into your second question, which is like, how do we choose and what do we do? So real quick, if you're listening and you're like, Daniel sounds interesting, I'm not sure yet. He could be crazy. Maybe he's one of Mitch's buddies. I don't know. Just give us a call. Come to our website, schedule the call. Like, we want to help. And that's 100% the truth. The other thing is, so last year we had around 30,000 applicants who applied to work for MyOutDesk in the Philippines. Okay. We did a first interview. We do a second interview. We check their references. We do an FBI grade background check. We're basically making sure these people are exactly what they said they are. And then we're putting them through 2 weeks of training. Okay. So this training is all online. It's all about real estate and what it looks like and what it is, but it's very kind of basic. Like, it's a surface level training, so that when you're ready, we know we at least have somebody who can finish a project and who is smart enough, because if they can't pass our test, we don't give them to clients. But we started with 30,000. We put them through our funnels where we do a personality profile. We check their references, do all this, do the training. And then last year, we only onboarded 500 people to clients. So it was less than 2% of the people actually get to do an interview. And so our process, it's 12 years of being perfected, right? And so your job is out there to find deals, get money, close, build your wealth. Our job is to deliver high caliber talent to you. So you just interview them and say, I want to hire this guy or that gal. And that's basically how we onboard folks.
Man, I highly, highly suggest you go to REInvestorSummit.com/MyOutDesk. Pick up the free digital copy of the book, Scale with Virtual Professionals. And you're about out of time for yourself. You got your hard stop. This is Mitch Stephen with the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. I'd like to thank all the listeners out there for stopping by to get you some Dale Ramsey at MyOutDesk. 12 years of providing quality overseas workers for people just like you and me in the real estate business. Also, thank you to my sponsor, taxfreefuture.com. Please go to taxfreefuture.com, watch the videos, and you won't believe what your financial advisors are not telling you. All right. Thank you so much, Daniel. And would you come back another time? Because there's a lot to be said about this still. You want to come back another time with me?
Oh yeah, man. We haven't even gotten into the good stuff. I'm 100% in. We'll get back here and we'll try to serve your clients and dive into the details of what we do every day for real estate people across the country.
That's really good. That's really good. All right, my friends, this is Mitch Stephen. We're out of here. Thank you for being on, Daniel.
Thank you.